So Megan, are you good to go?
Yes, we are good to go, Lito.
Just making sure. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the AT for Connection and Companionship workshop. My name is Lito Morello. I'm the Director of Kern County Aging and Adult Services. I appreciate everyone joining us today so we can learn more ways to combat social isolation and loneliness. I'd like to really thank our panelists today for taking time out of their busy schedule to share some ideas to help us with this issue. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge Ageless Innovation, Joy for All Companion Pets, for sponsoring this workshop. According to a recent AARP study that I just read, in the US, adults reported experiencing social isolation, and more than half, 2/3 of US adults experience social isolation, and more than half, 66%, agree that it's really raised their anxiety level. The most shocking thing about it is a lot of people aren't asking for help. So as we're doing the good work that we all do, keep in mind that the ideas and practices you'll see and hear about today in this workshop, as well as the other workshops as a whole, will help us in this endeavor. So with that, allow me the privilege of introducing our first speaker. Daily activities are essential for all of us, as we all know. Staying active is even more important in terms of improving our health and reducing social isolation and loneliness. Our presenter is an expert in this field. Deborah Williams from the ACC Care Center has been working there for about 5 years. She and her staff strive daily to create as many meaningful, purpose-driven moments for these residents as possible. Deborah has over 40 years of business experience. And with that, I'll turn it over to Deborah. Deborah, you're on mute.
Oh, there you go. Thank you so much, Lito. And I want to thank everybody for joining my presentation today. Before I get started, I want to thank Lito, the Director on Aging and Adult Services of Kern County. I would like to thank Daryl Kulch, Executive Director of California Association of Area Agencies on Aging. And I would like to thank Derek Lamb, President and CEO of ACC Senior Services, and Melanie Seeger, COO of ACC Senior Services, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my passion with you. I'm going to be covering today ACC resident life enrichment activities. I'm going to be focusing on creating meaningful moments. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Deborah Williams. I'm the Activities Director of ACC Senior Services. We are our ACC Care Center. We are a 99-bed community with a very diverse population. Next slide, please. Perfect. Next slide, please. I need that off. My objectives today is to demonstrate what it. My objectives today is to demonstrate what it takes to create purpose-driven, meaningful moments in the lives of our residents, to discuss innovative ways on how to create meaningful moments and to prevent isolation and loneliness. I have two very important questions for you. Next slide. The first question is, are we enough? And the second question is, what is enough? Next slide, please. It takes a person who is willing to be enough. Are you interested enough? Are you interested in enough to invest your valuable time to create meaningful moments for another person? Doing what tugs at your heart? Do you wake up in the morning excited about what you're doing? Are you interested enough to get to know them? Are you patient enough? Patience requires a genuine love for another human being. It requires you to put yourself aside and to clearly put the other person first. Are you kind enough? Do you greet a resident kindly? Do you care about the feelings? Are you respectful, and do you treat them with dignity? Are you caring enough? Do you know how they like to be cared for? Does your attitude, your body language, your tone of voice, and what you say and how you say it come across in a caring manner? If I followed you around all day, what would I witness? Are you understanding enough? Do you let them be themselves and not judge them? Do you accept their differences? Are you supportive of their choices? Do you make them feel comfortable? Do you live in their world? See, these things build the foundation where a resident can begin to like and trust you. Do you listen enough? I mean, do you listen and hear them? Do you feedback what you heard so they know that you listened? Each person has a flashing sign in the middle of their chest saying, I am important, make me feel special, honor me. Do you really know them enough? Are you interested enough to get to know them? Because getting to know them takes time and effort. Do you know their purpose, what ignites them into action? And do you want to get to know them? Next slide, please. Bottom line, you must have a caring heart and a passion enough to do all the above with relentless determination to help and support a human being to enrich their quality of life with meaningful moments. And then you will have been enough. As an activities director, one of my most important responsibilities is to do an activities assessment with a resident. This is where I get to have one-on-one time with them and really get to know them. And what I do is also create an activities care plan. And at this time, I'd like to share with you an actual activities care plan for one of our residents. Next, a typical care plan for activities. I like my independence and freedom to center my personal daily activities around my interests. I like to watch Warriors basketball, Giants baseball, and 49ers football games. I enjoy reading the Sacramento Bee newspaper and mechanics magazines, as I've been a mechanic for 40 years. I like playing poker games, listening to rock and roll music, CCR, and live entertainment. My favorite snack is Oreo cookies and a cold glass of milk. I love steak, ribs, and pizza. I am a family man, been married 42 years. I have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. We love camping and fishing as a family. We also attend our Christian church on Sundays. I have a black lab named Maggie, and I named her after my grandmother. Let's look and see what we know about their health matters. Next slide. I need staff assistance relating to physical immobility due to my right femur fracture. I need to be reminded by staff about safety measures. Since I'm a new environment, I may not realize my limitations. I have vision impairment and I wear glasses. I have hearing impairment and I wear hearing aids. I want to heal, gain strength, agility, and return home to my family. I have insomnia sometimes. Now let's go over to their goals. Next slide. I will maintain my family connection. I will express my satisfaction of how my time was spent. I will engage in 1 to 2 daily activities of my choice as tolerated. So we've learned about the person, we know their goals. Now let's talk about the interventions and how we're going to support them. Next slide, please. I would like staff to provide me with aromatherapy and relaxing music to help me with my insomnia. I would like staff to provide me with the Sacramento Bee newspaper and mechanics magazine, if possible, and a Bible. I would like staff to help me find TV stations for baseball, basketball, or football during my stay, preferably Warriors, Giants, or 49ers. I would like staff to offer me strolls outside, weather permitting. And I would like staff to provide me with a portable CD player or an MP3 player and headphones with CCR and rock and roll music, Christian worship music on Sundays to listen to at my leisure. Something that's very, very important to activities plan is the next slide. Next slide, please. Music is a major part of our planned activities. We have a music and memory program, and we offer personalized playlists are created with assistance from the resident, family, and staff. It helps with mood, behaviors, sleep, and establishes a connection to fond memories. For example, it's amazing what happens when I play the song, Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. Some residents will sing along with me. Others will move their bodies or tap their feet as they listen. And in fact, I think many of you probably were singing that song along with me right now, or many of you had a connection to some fond memories about going to a baseball game. Next slide, please. I would like to share with you a Mardi Gras music engagement program. We were playing in jazz music, celebrating Mardi Gras. The residents were all dressed up. And this is Jean. Jean loves music. She was hitting that tambourine and having a great, meaningful moment. And this was really exciting because when I create many meaningful moments for Jean, it creates a joyful moment for me. Next slide, please. We have 230 activities on average every month. We have 8 different church services, music, movies and popcorn, concert, special events, exercise, Tai Chi, yoga, and chair Zumba. And that's really important for balance and strength. We have board games, physical games, casino games, mahjong, and bingo. And if I don't have my casino, blackjack, or my mahjong, I'm in a lot of trouble. Arts and crafts, we have painting, drawing, flower arranging, just to name some of them. And we have cooking and baking. Next slide. I'd like to share with you our yoga activity. And this is Amy. She's totally paralyzed except for her right arm. And she is so happy when she's in yoga. She's able to communicate her needs and what she's feeling. And I could just tell you, this is a very meaningful, important moment in Amy's life. Next slide, please. We also play a game called balloon volleyball. And when you first mention this to somebody, they kind of like, what, balloon? But let me tell you how important it is to our residents. First of all, this is an interactive activity. So they're socializing with one another. They're empowered to hit the balloon. And you'll see one resident really hit it, and others are very nice in making sure everybody gets their time. We listen to vibrant music during this activity. They're getting physical activity. They love it so much, it's hard for me to get them to stop. So this is a very meaningful, interactive, social, physical, cognitive activity for our residents. And it is one of the most meaningful ones that we have. Next slide, please. So we have cognitive, sensory, physical, and social activities geared towards severely cognitive impaired residents. Morning Sunshine Group. What we do is we take our severely cognitive residents outside on our bistro patio, play some really energetic music. They're out in the sun. They're hitting the beach ball to each other. Some are singing, and it's a great way to get their vitamin D3 in the morning. And it's a wonderful way for them to start their morning. And then we have Friendship Circle. And this group is for one-on-one personal activities that are meaningful for our severely cognitively impaired residents. They need that one-on-one interaction that meets their personal needs that a group activity won't give them. Another activity we have is a music drumming activity. And that is another very active, important activity. We have salon services, massage therapy, manicures. We have community engagement, outings, and joy rides. And our community engagement is important. We had Stanford students Skype with our Mandarin and Cantonese residents and develop meaningful friendships with them that they still have today. We have a book club, current events, writing practice, and educational programs. Next slide. This is a sample of our music drumming activity. This lady in the middle, she came to us from the hospital with a total stroke. She was totally paralyzed. She couldn't talk, she couldn't eat, she couldn't move. And through our great physical therapy and speech therapy department and activities and our nursing staff, she's now able to eat and swallow. She's able to talk, and she's getting better at talking every day. And she is one of our main people hitting that drum. In fact, if you guys know the chicken song, and I'm going to kind of embarrass myself right now, but it goes da 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 boom 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 boom. They follow that, and they're so excited, and they're so engaging. I actually made a video and sent it to the family, and they were so thrilled and in tears to see their mother and their wife and that kind of an activity from where she was until where she is now. Next slide, please. We have special themed events, 50s Day costume parties, sock hop and malt shop, drive-by parades involving families and members of our community, music groups, children recitals, the Sacramento Philharmonic, centenary and birthday celebrations, along with the official key to the city and a letter from the White House. I mean, seriously. We have Celebrate Cultures and Diversity Day, where we had a fashion show. We had an incredible international potluck. It was amazing. And then we have a Thrill of a Lifetime program, where one of our residents, their dream was to throw the first pitch out at a baseball game. That's something that was important to him his whole life. So we contacted the River Cats, and we scheduled it where he can go there and throw out the first pitch of the game. And he did this with his family, his grandchildren, even his best man in his wedding was there, as the family, as staff and residents were in the stands, all cheering him on. That was a very meaningful, emotional moment, and happy moment, exciting moment. Every moment you can think of was awesome. We also have pet therapy visits, which are very important, meaningful moments for our residents. We have dog visits, and we also have a very special visitor. Her name is Sadie. She's our miniature pony. See, staff and resident engagement is big at ACC. Next slide, please. This is 50s Day. We have Elaine and we have Naomi, and they're both very excited for 50s Day. Next slide. Drive-by parades. We actually had 5 drive-by parades during the pandemic. Next slide, please. We had some very creative signs. We all love the one, "You're pretty." Next slide, please. Pet therapy visit. This is Sadie, the therapy pony. These pictures say 1,000 words on how connected the pony is to our resident and how meaningful it is, especially during isolation. This was very, very important. Next slide, please. We have Chinese New Year 2021. We had such a wonderful Chinese New Year celebration. We had a big feast. All the residents got their red envelopes with their 3 coins, and then we celebrated with the traditional lion dance. This was such a fun activity and very important to our diverse population. Next slide. We offer palliative comfort care and support. We help residents and family members through difficult times and giving them quality comfort care through ACC staff or hospice. We're being there for them during loss and mourning. We provide spiritual support and grieving counselors. We have scheduled memorial services, which this is really important because when somebody passes away here at our home, it affects all of us, the staff, family, and the residents. So our memorial services are very meaningful and important. We make sure that all of the residents' needs and family needs and choices are met. Next slide, please. I would like to talk about how we prevented isolation and loneliness. iPads were used for scheduled virtual family visits. We had window visits, and they were scheduled for residents and families and as an option when applicable. We had compassionate family visits, and they were scheduled as determined by the multidisciplinary team. And that is really important. When you have can you go back? Back, forward, please. Go back. Next slide. Thank you. Compassionate family visits were scheduled as determined by the multidisciplinary team. And when a resident was in an end-of-life stage, we want to make sure that the family was there surrounding them and meeting all of their needs. That was really important to us. We have intergenerational interaction activities. So we have the children from the communities and grandchildren. They come in and do arts and crafts, or they'll do a show, or they'll have a meal with a resident. But we also had a family during isolation that they wanted to have a four-generation picture taken. And we were able to meet their need with taking pictures outside, 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, and we took a very important picture for the family, very meaningful. We have another program called the PAL program, which means Patient Advocate Liaison. This is a very important program to our community. What it is a staff member and a resident. They meet and talk every week. They also engage with the family, and they talk about what's going on. And then the staff member reports on Wednesdays at our stand-up meeting what's going on with their PAL. You know, I think all of us, we have family, but we've always had a very best friend our whole life. And in our care center, the PAL is their most valuable friend. That's their best friend while they're here. Next slide, please. We also have a VIP, which is a visitor infection prevention lounge, and it was built to support resident and family visits. What you see here is Mr. King and his two sons in the lounge holding a tablet with Skype with all the grandchildren and his daughter in the window as they sing happy birthday and celebrate their father's birthday. There were so many tears and so much joy shared at this very meaningful moment. Next slide, please. We also have an outdoor VIP lounge for resident and family visits, weather permitting. And this is Peter Marie. She was celebrating her birthday, but because this was before we had vaccinations, we have red tape on the cement. And the red tape was there just to remind the family to maintain their 6 feet distance. Resident family members would come in and they would have their temperature taken. They would answer surveillance questions. They would wear their mask. They wear a face shield, and they would come out and visit their family member, and they would communicate and have contact with them and connection. And if you could see Peter Marie, she's reading a birthday card that she got from her grandson. Again, extremely meaningful moments for the resident. Next slide, please. We offer in-room independent activities during isolation. One of the things we did is the residents decorated activity bags with their names, and we provided them with their chosen meaningful independent activities, which were put inside the bags for easy access. For example, checklist, MP3 player, coloring, crocheting, tablets. I mean, this was really, really important to the residents that when they were in isolation, that they had meaningful activities of their own to do that was valuable for them. At this time, I have a few questions I want to ask you. It's important that I go back to two questions at the beginning of the presentation. And one is, are we enough? And the next question is, how much is enough? Because it's important that you have a caring heart and you have the passion enough to do all of the above with relentless determination to help and support a resident, to encourage them to have a meaningful life, because then you will have been enough. I leave you with one last slide and one last question. Next slide, please. Are you willing to be enough? I hope you are enough. Thank you so much for joining me on this presentation today. I hope you had a lot of meaningful moments for yourself. Thank you so much. And I guess we can go into some question and answers.
Deborah, we'll do that at the very end of everyone's presentation, but thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. 230 activities on average is quite a bit of activity, so thank you for what you do.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I'd like to move on to our next speaker. When you think about virtual reality, it seems like something a gamer would be talking about. How can virtual reality really help individuals with disabilities or our seniors deal with social isolation and loneliness? And our next presenter will tell us how. Ted Worth is with Mind VR. He is the head of corporate development, the leading provider of virtual reality products for older adults. Ted has spent his entire career working at the intersection of media and technology, having co-founded one of the world's first online magazines, Total New York, and one of the largest webcasters of live concerts, Digital Club Network. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ted.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ted Worth, and it's really nice to be here. I really appreciate the organizers for inviting us to be a part of this. I'm excited to share with you all about Mind VR and about virtual reality in general. I know many of you may have used VR by now, but many of you haven't, and so I hope this is useful in explaining what virtual reality can do. Our goal at Mind VR is to improve lives by bringing the outside world back to people who are unable to fully experience it. The types of content that we offer and that you can get through virtual reality includes virtual travel, the ability to visit places all over the world, virtual pets, pet therapy, like Deborah mentioned, that's so valuable and important. One of our most popular pieces of content is simply being surrounded by puppies in virtual reality, and it just makes everybody smile. Virtual nature, the ability to visit parks and all sorts of things that you maybe haven't had a chance to see yourself by traveling. Music and arts, concerts, visiting museums, learning documentaries like visiting the space station, and action and adventure, like launching off of an aircraft carrier. I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. First of all, I'm a New Jersey native who spent a couple of years of my childhood in Westminster in Orange County, and loved California from that moment, and always knew that I would make the move back. And so about 15 years ago, I made what might have been a somewhat drastic move, and I left the heart of downtown Manhattan, and I moved to a lavender farm in Santa Ynez, in the wine country of Santa Ynez. And I just loved it, and originally told everyone I'll be back to New York in a year or two, and 15 years later, I haven't left. And since then, I've lived in Santa Ynez, San Luis Obispo, San Francisco, and now in Los Angeles, hence my Santa Monica Pier behind me. So a little bit about the power of immersive VR. A lot of people will often ask, can't I just watch that on television? What's really the difference with virtual reality? And it's a great question. And the difference really is that when you're watching, say, a travel show about Paris, you're still quite conscious that you're in your room. You still see your four walls around you. You might be watching a flat screen about Paris, but you know that you're in your room where you are potentially isolated and stuck. But when you put on a VR headset, like this one here, you really lose that sense of where you are, and you're transported. And suddenly you're no longer in those four walls. It breaks you out of that isolation and makes you really feel in a very different and powerful way that you've gone someplace different. And so I'm going to show a little video here that'll just give you a sense, hopefully, of how it all works.
Social isolation depression is a real concern. The one tech company is helping seniors cope.
Virtual reality can open a window to freedom and adventure. Now more than ever, our parents and grandparents are isolated from the outside world. And Mind VR is here to help, making the four walls around them disappear.
Oh, you got one finally. Hey, come around this way. Come on.
Introducing them to new worlds and old favorites.
Wow.
Have you ever seen a rice paddy in person? I haven't either.
Creating shareable experiences and improving relationships.
VR not only allows Ika to fly, she can even share her VR experience with her son, Kevin Ika.
When she does it, she's happy and excited. She likes it. She likes going places, so she gets to do that. And it's a cool thing.
My dad, he's very limited in what he does. Sometimes television, he loses his interest, he loses his focus. This was something he was 100% engaged with. As soon as he took the goggles off, he was talking about it. He was thrilled. And that I don't see that every day with the newspaper and television.
With the largest library of senior-friendly virtual reality content, we can bring the outside world to them.
Instead of just reading it in National Geographic, you can go there.
I couldn't believe I really was seeing the pictures I used to see with my dad. And I actually was in the middle of it all.
And at the end of the day, they have earned this.
Smiles on the face.
Give the gift of Mind VR today.
So Smiles on Faces is our sort of unofficial slogan. We know that when people put on a VR headset and they see this type of content and experience this, they just light up. It makes people beam from ear to ear. In addition to the smiles on faces, we know that there is tremendous therapeutic benefit to using this type of technology. One example I like to give is one time when we were in a memory care community with an older woman who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and her daughter was visiting that day. And she didn't recognize her daughter at that particular moment, and they weren't really able to interact. But we asked if she wanted to hear some music, and she said yes. And so we put her into the VR headset to a sort of jazzed speakeasy club and played Fly Me to the Moon. And she watched, Fly Me to the Moon, and she started singing along and snapping her fingers and just having such a good time. When she took off the headset, she turned to her daughter, knew exactly who she was telling her about memories of the song and what she used to do as a little girl. And it was just amazing, and tears from people in the room, watching this kind of experience. Music therapy, as Deborah mentioned, can be so powerful, and taking it into this additional realm of 3D and immersion can really amp it up to being even more powerful. So what exactly is the Mind VR system? Just want to be really clear. What we provide is a subscription bundle of VR. We provide VR headsets. We provide a care tablet controller for a family member or a caregiver to do the experience together. And we provide a huge library of VR content that gets updated every month. So there's always fresh things to do and discover and engage with. And of course, easy setup and support. But probably what's most important is that we provide this across the whole spectrum of care. We have a bundle that's available for senior living communities. There's 150 communities now across the country that are using Mind VR. And basically they make it available as an activity for their residents. And that can be done prior to COVID as a group activity where people would gather together. Multiple people could put on headsets, and one staff member or caregiver could guide them through with the tablet. So they're all doing the same experience together and sharing that experience. Or it can be done on a one-on-one basis, which is what's happened primarily during the last year, where someone would go to the room with the individual and say, what would you like to do today? Where would you like to go? What would you like to experience? And we found that this has a really additional added benefit that we hadn't even originally considered, which is that sense of agency and control, and giving somebody that control back in their day. And as we know, a lot of people don't have a lot of control about what they're going to do with their day. They don't have a lot of choice. And we found that this experience of being able to choose, I am here, I'm in this room, but here's what I want to do, and here's what I want to experience, and I can put on this headset and I can choose to go do it and now be surrounded by it, that sense of agency was really very powerful. So we have this, the product that's available for senior living communities and other healthcare settings like hospitals and clinics where people are undergoing dialysis, chemotherapy. That sort of distraction therapy is really, really valuable as well if you're sitting in a room hooked up to a machine for several hours at a time. And now we also have MindVR available for home use for individuals. When COVID hit, we started to get emails from people saying, you know, this sounds like something I would love to get for my father or my grandmother who's stuck at home and unable to get outside again. Is this something I could do? And so we accelerated our development of the MindVR at home product. And now that's available on our website and Amazon for any individual. So to talk a little bit about the range of content and experiences that you can get from virtual reality. There's that sort of recreational therapy, the things that we said, like put smiles on faces, or distraction therapy, nature immersion therapy, pet therapy, music, reminiscence therapy. These are all fantastic things, and they're just one portion of what you can do with VR. We also actually have caregiver modules that allow caregivers to take a brief break in their day and relax, and perhaps do a Zen or meditation, a guided meditation. So it's really a health and wellness product for the caregivers as well. And then there's training for caregivers. So we've actually worked with Care Indeed, which is a great home care agency in Palo Alto. And we've developed training for how to work with someone with dementia. We know it's very hard to be a caregiver in memory care. And this training module allows you to experience some of the challenges and make those choices of what do I do in this scenario and that scenario. And VR is really a great tool for that kind of experience. The next thing that's really important and relevant to what we're talking about here today, and it's in development right now and will be launching soon, is the real-time connecting with families and friends. And that's where you put on the headset and your loved one who is somewhere else across the world can be there with you, experiencing the exact same VR experience, talking to you while you're going through it together. They can monitor it and watch it on their own device, not just on our caregiver tablet, but on their own computer or phone or their own tablet. This is a really exciting set of content, a whole world of virtual shared environments where you're in a virtual space together and able to talk about your interests and meet other people who are perhaps isolated physically themselves, and talk to each other about your experiences. And then finally, the ability for people to have their own photos and videos actually be a part of that, where family members can upload video of a wedding that perhaps you missed, or your grandchild learning to ride a bicycle. And in that virtual reality experience, you'll be able to watch that video and share it with them. Coming down the road, and this is not just from MindVR, but across the whole spectrum, is this whole world of medical VR, digital therapeutics, using apps and content and games as an actual digital treatment for diseases and other conditions. So we've got an amazing research board that I'll get to in a moment that's leading the development of how we can actually create specific pieces of content that can be used to treat specific conditions like Alzheimer's and other dementias, Parkinson's. For example, we've seen people with Parkinson's lose their tremors while they're in a VR experience. There's something about it that is tricking the brain in a way that allows them to not have tremors. And for that experience to last about 45 minutes after being done with the VR. It's amazing stuff. We're going to do more research on that to prove how that works. Just a quick bit about the last year. Obviously, COVID was very isolating for everybody in the world, but especially so for seniors and people with disabilities. We decided early on in COVID that we wanted to do something to help. So we worked with our providers, our hardware providers, to donate 50 VR systems to 50 senior living communities across the country. And this was a wonderful program. Fox News did a huge story on it. It was really nice. We got to see how people could use VR to break that feeling of isolation that they were having due to the pandemic. As I mentioned before, we also, during the pandemic, we rolled out our Mind VR at Home product, and we're just getting amazing quotes back from people about the ability to bring these experiences like fishing back to their loved ones. So I want to talk just a little bit about the research and where we're going. Like we said, we've seen these amazing experiences, but we really want to quantify this, and we want to prove how virtual reality can really benefit some of these conditions. So we've pulled together some of the best people who've been working on VR and healthcare for 20 years in some cases. Skip Rizzo at USC, Dr. Walter Greenleaf at Stanford. They're really the foremost people who've been developing virtual reality as healthcare. Dr. Adam Ghazali at UCSF is one of the co-developers of one of the very first digital therapeutics that's been approved now by the FDA to treat specific diseases. So really a great group of people who are now helping to guide this. We've already done some initial studies, for example, with Silverado, which is a large memory care operator based in Southern California, where they found 82% of their memory care participants were neutral or very positive to using virtual reality. It was a great initial finding for us. But perhaps the most interesting for us right now is we're working with Stanford. Stanford came to us wanting to do the largest study ever done on VR and aging, and knew that we had this reach to communities and participants who could participate in this study. And so that's kicking off right now. And this study is going to examine three main areas that are, I think, all relevant to everybody here. One is the cognitive benefits of VR to people who are isolated and to older adults, how it might change their mood and make them happier. But we're also looking at how VR can affect the adoption of new technologies. We all recognize that digital technologies, digital health are going to play an increasing role in caring for people who are isolated, and but only if they're willing to adopt those technologies. And so the premise here is that VR might actually be sort of a fun technology that can get people more comfortable adopting other technologies. And so we're looking at that in this study. And then the last thing that we're doing is looking at the caregiver and the care recipient relationship. What we've seen anecdotally is that people really enjoy doing this together. The staff also light up and enjoy participating in these travels and these experiences. We're hoping to show that this activity actually brings them together. It may improve the quality of life, not just of the resident, but of the caregiver, and make them happier in their day-to-day. And we know that if we can show that it could have really positive benefits to everybody in senior living and in the world of caregiving. This page here, I don't expect you all to read all this text, but this is just some observations from some of the early studies that we did with a college in Texas, showing how using VR made people more social. After using it, they wanted to talk to each other. It made them more expressive. People who maybe weren't otherwise voicing what they wanted or didn't want in their day. This made them more expressive, more communicative with their caregivers. We had an example of a woman whose partner had passed away, and she had spent, I think, weeks in her room and really wasn't out and interacting with the rest of the community. But after doing the VR experience, she just wanted to talk to people about it, and went out and dined in the dining hall for the first time in a while, and was talking to people and communicating, and it just, again, wonderful experiences. So I'm really, again, grateful to be here, to be able to share all of this with you. I hope that we have a chance to put you into these headsets and experience this yourselves and see what it is. I know that until you've really had a chance to do it, sometimes you just don't quite get it. And when you put on the VR headset for the first time and you look around in all directions and you see what's going on, you just, aha, I see what this is about. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to do that for all of you pretty soon. I look forward to your questions later on in the Q&A section. And again, really appreciate your time here. Thank you.
Ted, thank you very much for that presentation. I can honestly tell you from my own experience that virtual reality is an amazing technology. The best way I can describe it is just a dream, because you're just immersed in that whole situation and scenario. So thank you for that presentation. I'm sure we have a lot of Q&A from the people on the call. So many of us on the call today enjoy the comfort of joy from what we get from our pets every day. They're not only our companions, but they become really a big part of our everyday life. But if you're in a situation where you can't have a pet or aren't able to care for a pet, then our next presenter has a perfect solution for that. Jim Murphy, he's from Ageless Innovations, Joy for All Companion Pets. Jim spearheads Ageless Innovations healthcare business and is responsible for expanding Joy for All Companion Pets footprint as an approved non-traditional intervention for older adults who are lonely, socially isolated, or living with cognitive impairment, such as Alzheimer's and other related dementias. Prior to joining Ageless, Jim spent many years at United Healthcare. So with that, Jim.
Awesome. Thank you, Lito. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. So thank you, Lito and Daryl and the rest of the C4A leadership for inviting me, for inviting us to participate in this panel and share.
Jim, this is Megan. We're seeing your presenter view of the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. That is strange.
Is it maybe on another monitor, the actual full screen?
It is.
So you might want to stop your share and then select to share that full screen one.
Okay.
Thank you. It would be on Zoom, stopping the share.
And is it continuing to show?
So right now it's in, we see the slide deck on the left. Yeah, it's still the presenter view.
Okay.
Strange, but it's still visible.
It's never done that before.
Always during a conference, right?
Exactly. So that looks
There
better?
you go, that's right.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come share information on Ageless Innovation and our Joy for All Companion Pets. And some of you may be familiar with Ageless Innovation and our flagship product, Joy for All Companion Pets, but especially for those that aren't, I find it really helpful to be able to start with our purpose and a little bit about our background, because it provides a lot of context to how we got to today. So our purpose is to reimagine how we positively live and age together by unleashing the power of play. And for those that have lived in the senior care space for a while, like I have, primarily in Medicaid for the last couple of Medicare for the last couple of decades, that seems like somewhat of an unusual and, pun intended, playful statement. But when you understand the origin story of the Joy for All companion pets, our purpose will probably make a lot more sense. So the companion pets were initially birthed within the walls of Hasbro, the toy company. And it was with the insight of an existing toy that had been marketed to young children for many years called the For Real Friend, where it was actually determined that about 15 to 20% of purchases were actually for older individuals, that this small new business group within Hasbro created and launched the Joy for All companion pets, which were an enhanced version of the existing product that was co-created with older individuals and their families. It was launched in 2016, and as you can imagine, with Hasbro as the creator, that it was really channeled and focused on retail and direct-to-consumer. It launched with a lot of fanfare and got a good deal of earned media coverage and a lot of consumer feedback. And it was during that time frame that a number of different healthcare players became exposed to it and intrigued by the potential impact that the Joy for All companion pets could have. I was one of those players. I only joined Ageless Innovation about a year ago. I was actually leading innovation within the United Healthcare Medicare space in the intersection with AARP. We had already many years ago began to focus on social isolation and loneliness. And it was being exposed to the companion pets in the early days and really trying to understand what the potential positive impact that could be that caused us to be able to propose and ultimately lead a study. And I'm going to go into some of the studies that have been pursued to date, which now number over 10 over the last few years. So as the retail business continued to grow and we had this growing interest from healthcare organizations in conjunction with academic organizations, the original team within Hasbro spun out and created Ageless Innovation. It was a friendly spin out occurring in 2018. And our flagship product, the Joy for All companion pets, continues to be our sole line of business today. So we've continued to grow from a retail perspective, both domestically and internationally, now available in dozens of different countries throughout Europe. And we've also more recently begun to expand the distribution and availability through a number of different healthcare channels. So what is the applicability? What is the impact relative to healthcare? And so I'll say that early on, when I first became exposed to the companion pets and reviewing consumer feedbacks and organic videos that were made by consumers early in the launch, the applicability, the potential relative to positively impacting individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias was pretty evident through these pieces of consumer feedback. And then there was really a question of, okay, can it positively impact individuals without cognitive issues as well? So our impact in the two use cases that you'll hear me talking about are really about Alzheimer's disease and related dementias and social isolation and loneliness. And we know that these are two of the biggest, meatiest, ongoing challenges within the senior health space. Knowing that Alzheimer's disease and related dementias affect just shy of 6 million individuals who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or related dementias, and we know that it's considerably underdiagnosed. The 16 million plus family caregivers that provide these individuals ongoing support, often for years at a time, and collectively the billions of hours every year of unpaid care and support that these individuals provide. On social isolation and loneliness front, we know that it's a serious yet underappreciated public health issue. and it affects a significant portion of the older population. And I think Lito cited it earlier, is while it's been known that this epidemic has been with us for a very long time, it's the epidemic within the pandemic that's really exacerbated things, with AARP and a couple of other organizations conducting studies in October of 2020, where whether it was the 50 plus population or the 65 plus population, the incidence of loneliness or feelings of social isolation had doubled from prior to the pandemic. So we know it's a growing issue that's been exacerbated greatly in the last year. And whether to some of the information and stories that Deborah and Ted were telling earlier, is so whether it was in a senior living facility or whether it's with a community dwelling individual who's isolated from their loved ones, it's definitely impacted folks regardless of setting. So as I mentioned before, and I would be happy to share our white paper or point people to specific studies if anyone is interested in, but we have conducted over the last few years 10 studies, and with healthcare partners, often in conjunction with academic organizations, in various different settings. Some focused on individuals with Alzheimer's and related dementias, others more focused on older populations in general. And I think that the takeaway and themes that you're likely seeing in here is, regardless of setting, it had a positive psychosocial benefit for these individuals, reducing loneliness, increasing purpose, increasing resilience. And for those individuals with Alzheimer's, it had the added benefit, and logically follows based on what I just said, that it can ameliorate behavioral issues associated with individuals with Alzheimer's as well. In other words, be a non-pharmacological solution and support for someone, so you don't have to administer psychotropic medications. As I said before, we'd be happy to share more detail for anyone who's interested. But these are really the headlines, just to give you an idea of the types of positive psychosocial benefit that have been evidenced in these studies. Some of them, like the AARP United Healthcare study, being statistically powered and larger in scale. Other ones, admittedly, some of them more smaller scale qualitative studies. So as it relates to the healthcare arena and where we've had applicability, so beyond this growing retail business through many different retail partners, we've really looked to expand our relationships as it relates to healthcare organizations and healthcare related organizations. So some of our earliest adopters, earliest testers and then adopters were those in the long-term care space. So nursing homes, assisted living, and memory care communities. And we continue to grow these relationships and serve these populations both domestically and globally, and see considerable growth in being able to positively impact more residents throughout the world. And then two is more recently, and this is the world that I came from after many, many years in the space, is that CMS allowed for companion pets to be approved as a special supplemental benefit for the chronically ill as of Plan Year 2020. Both in the Medicare and Medicaid space, it is very, very early days relative to the adoption and rollout of our companion pets to targeted populations. But just to give you one example, the earliest adopter was Health Partners, which is a plan in Minnesota targeted towards individuals with Alzheimer's or those with diagnosis of depression. And through customer service and care management interaction, they engage eligible beneficiaries, eligible members, and have conversations with them about whether this is something that would be of interest to them. From a Medicaid perspective, we also have many early adopters kind of peppered in different service areas throughout the US as well. And once again, I would describe it as very early days, but you can think of very similar use cases to the ones that I laid out where there could be applicability here. And we're having new conversations every day with organizations that serve like populations to the ones that I've described, and want to test the potential positive impact. And lastly, and where you're going to hear me spend the last just 2 or 3 minutes here, is to share a little bit as it relates to your world and most specifically what's occurred over the course of the last year. So we have been working with now 20 different states, some statewide programs through state units on aging, others where it's collection of AAAs or other members of the aging network within different states who are deploying pets, companion pets, some to community dwelling individuals, some with an added focus around nursing homes through their ombudsman program, some with a specific amplified focus around individuals with Alzheimer's, others a more general approach to those that they have screened and determined to be lonely or socially isolated. So I'm going to show just a quick video and then one really quick case video, and then we'll be able to get to our Q&A. All right.
These are called animatronic pets. We have dogs and cats that come in a variety of different colors and shapes. We've put about 60 of these pets out into the communities to test them and their impact on social isolation and depression among older adults. Social isolation is a huge public health problem. And I don't think that we've quite wrapped our mind around it, but it's at the level of osteoporosis, diabetes, obesity, hypertension.
Olson began working with aging communities about 25 years ago, and he believes these could be the solution to senior social isolation.
I don't care if I have to pay $1 million, I will not give that cat up. It's something to come home to.
So that video was made in the third quarter of last year. Some of you may have seen it at a conference, but those numbers, obviously, Director Olson from New York State Office on Aging, he was speaking to the impact he saw through an original pilot that he did back in 2019. So in March, he knew, based on the impact he'd previously seen, he wanted this to be just another tool in the toolbox to be able to combat social isolation. And, you know, whether it's tablets or other devices, he saw it as a nice complement to that. And so the last piece for anyone who is not familiar with the pets, as much as I can speak to quantitative studies and the findings, it was during the course of the study that we conducted while I was at United that I first witnessed really the impact that it could have for an individual. So this is a video that a family shared with permission. So we have permission to share it with you all, but it's not to make, I don't share it with the intent of making anybody sad or cry on a Thursday afternoon. But I think hopefully it will smile as you can see the joy that it's bringing this individual and her loved ones.
The old folks. Oh my goodness.
Older.
Oh my gracious. Oh my God. Oh my
It's
gracious.
almost like having a real cat.
Aw.
They have these for like lonely and isolated old folks. They're like these robotic pets.
Really?
And they were giving them out during the pandemic. Yeah. You open it up and there's an on and off switch.
There's one.
There's an on and off switch. See?
Oh, yeah. And then what? Oh. Aw. Oh. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
There's extra batteries in the box too when they dry.
Oh my goodness. It's beautiful. Thank
Isn't that
you.
cute?
Thank you, sweetie. Oh, it's purring.
It purrs, it blinks, it licks its paw.
I worship a child.
I know. Look at it.
Oh.
It moves. You rub its belly.
I hear something else.
It's purring.
Purring.
Better hold it.
That's
Oh.
right.
I want
This. Mark, look at this. I see
And it comes with a little brush.
Oh
So you can
my
brush it.
goodness. Wait later, see this. Oh my goodness.
I think it turns off on its own when.
So it's something, just one last comment, and I think something she said there at the very end is a really important part of this. So whether it's the companionship that the pets provide an individual when they're otherwise not socializing with others, or whether it's the interaction that it creates with others, whether they're family, friends, or other individuals, she said, wait till Ada sees this. And it's part of that kind of magnetic aspect of it that creates interaction, that creates socialization. That's definitely part of the magic that we've seen through some of these studies. So I'll push pause there and welcome any questions through Q&A.
Great, Jim. Thank you very much for that presentation as well. I can tell you that we've had, I got my little guy here. We've also gotten a cat, and we wanted to test it out at one of our skilled nursing facilities, and it really worked wonders for an individual at that facility that was having trouble adjusting. So I can tell you straight from the horse's mouth kind of thing that these pets really work. So with that, I know our time is getting limited here, so I'll jump right into some of the questions that are asked on the chat, and I'll turn it over to Megan. Megan, would you mind?
Absolutely. So first we have some comments in the chat about the companion pets. Elvira says, I love this. And Miriam says, great tool. So Ted, we have questions in multiple formats that people really want to know. What's the cost of Mind VR?
Sure.
What does that look like?
Sure, absolutely. So Mind VR for the community is priced typically based on the number of headsets. So it's essentially $150 per month per headset and tablet companion. So a community may have as few as 1 headsets. Some have up to 10 headsets. It really depends on their size, their budget, how they want to incorporate it into their activities. But basically $150 a month per headset. And then the home product is about $750. That gives you the headset, the tablet, and an entire year of content. So a 1-year subscription comes along with that.
Thank you. I hope that answered folks' questions. And following up on that, people want to know, how heavy is the device and does it require an internet connection?
Very good question. So the headset itself is actually quite light. This is something that we've iterated on. You know, when VR first came out, I'll admit the headsets were a little bit bulky. They were a little confusing. You had to take a phone and you had to slip it in and you had to attach the headphones, and it was complicated. These days, it's called all-in-one headsets. They're very light and comfortable for older adults. They have built-in speakers. There's no other cables. You don't have to connect it to a computer. There's nothing else involved. You also don't have to be online to use it. So you don't need high bandwidth. You don't need great Wi-Fi. You do need that. You need to have some bandwidth so that you can make an initial connection to our service. But then after that, you can use it offline. There's a whole bunch of content downloaded on the device itself, so you can use it for hours and hours and just occasionally connect to the internet to update with new content every month.
Thank you. And they're also asking, what's the next step for this? And I know I have a Disneyland background, but I'm gonna go with my Star Trek heart. They want to know if this is the next holodeck.
Absolutely, it really is. I'm so excited about virtual worlds where people can be, use an avatar or something else that represents you, and you're in a virtual space talking to other people and moving around and sharing it. And it really is, it's just like the holodeck in Star Trek. It's kind of limitless, and we're sort of at the early days of smartphones, where some people were like, really, I don't know that I need a smartphone. My flip phone is just fine. I can do what I want. And other people were like, well, you're going to end up wanting a smartphone. It's going to become, pretty ubiquitous. That's kind of where we are today with VR. A lot of people are like, it sounds sort of interesting and maybe I'll want it. We're pretty sure, and a lot of the industry believes this is going to be like the smartphone. It's going to be adopted. Everyone will be using VR or AR in some capacity in the near future.
Thank you. I'm excited to see that holodeck come to life. One more question, Ted. Folks are asking, are the contracts the $150 per price? Is that for agencies as well as individuals?
Actually, that's a good question. We do have a different price specifically for home care agencies, home health agencies, so that they can subscribe and have some headsets that they can then take out to their clients and their customers. I'll have to get back to you on those pricing for agencies, but there is a price in between there. And anybody can reach out to me, ted@mindvr.com, and happy to connect.
Thank you. And Jim, we're going to come to you. So first of all, a comment. Somebody says, I have a friend who gave his grandma with dementia a baby doll that makes sounds, and it kept her very busy. So it sounds like that's kind of a similar product to the Joy for All Pets. But the question here is, I have a mobility disability. How can I qualify to get a companion pet?
Yeah, so that's one where I hope I can answer this question really differently in 3 to 5 years. If you look at the service area map for Medicare and Medicaid adopters to date, is really kind of blips on the US map at this point, as far as where you'd be able to contact your health plan and have it be a covered item or benefit. So unfortunately, we're not there yet. We do have some early adopters, and I'm hopeful in a few years that this is the type of thing that not only will it be something someone could call their insurance company for, but that the health plan values it so much that they're actually doing outreach to be able to make people aware of it. So,
Jim, thank you so much for bringing up the health plans. That ties right into a question from Vienna here for Ted. Considering the cost of these devices and given their therapeutic benefits and future plans in prescriptive nature, will MindVR be exploring alternative ways for their clients to be able to afford the device, potentially via insurance?
Absolutely. We recently created a committee inside the company to explore reimbursement by insurance, private and Medicare. We actually welcome input from anybody here in working with us on how we can go through that path. We've got a few partners that we are working with on that. One of our advisors used to run HHS in Texas and is helping to guide us there through this path. It's something that we're planning on doing as soon as possible.
Thank you. That's great to hear. And I've seen a couple questions about if the materials will be available after the presentation. Yes, each of the presenters did send their materials to us. We will be going through them for accessibility and then posting them to the conference website after, along with the archive of this session that will have captions embedded in. We are near the end of our session, so when you close out today, there will be a SurveyMonkey that will open up in your browser. If you could take that and give us a quick review of this workshop. And then for the conference, we are going on a lunch break from 11:30 to 12:15, and we'll be back for workshop 3, which is on closing the digital divide, and workshop 4, which is on AT for aging in place at home, and you'll access those through the conference website lobby like you did to get here. Lito, I'll pass it to you to close us out.
Great, thank you for that, Megan. I just want to thank everyone for joining us on this workshop, especially our esteemed panelists here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. A lot of great ideas, a lot of great technology. And last but not least, I'd also like to again thank our sponsor for this workshop, Jim Murphy and Ageless Innovation. So thank you for that, Jim. I want to again thank you all and enjoy the rest of the conference. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.